Hey YouTube, welcome back to Dwayne's World. So in today's video, I may piss off some people, I may make some people happy, I may confuse some people, and others may just not give a crap. You want to find out more? You better stay tuned. So Dwayne, how do you piss people off but make them happy at the same time, and why would somebody be confused? Well, let me go ahead and show you a clip from one of my previous YouTube videos, and I think it'll help explain. Again, I think when people have even asked me, about my channel, and they ask about the mowers I used on my channel, they say things like, well, Dwayne, why don't you get a Greensmaster? Why don't you buy a John Deere? And not that those mowers aren't phenomenal mowers and that I wouldn't enjoy mowing with it. I'm sure I would love to have one of those mowers, and maybe one day I will. And the reason why I don't, not that I couldn't, if I really wanted to, I'm sure I could find one, but at the same time, that's not really what I'm about. And the reason why I'm not about that, and you think about it, you can watch other YouTubers that have those phenomenal mowers, and there's nothing against any one of those mowers or any of those YouTubers, they do a phenomenal job. However, what I always can relate to is my neighbor, or I always can relate to is a buddy of mine. And not everybody is going to have a Greensmaster 1600, in their garage, or a John Deere 220, or some of these other high-end, type mowers. And I think because it's less relatable to people sometimes, it's not really what I want my channel to stand for. Because all right, so now you look at that video. Now I think maybe you understand why I think some people may be upset, or why some people may be confused about what they're seeing here on Dwayne's World. So let me clarify for you guys. My channel originally was built on the foundation of residential reel mowers being used to get a professional result. That's what the channel is really all about. So the Toro Greens Master, you should get a professional result because it's a professional piece of equipment. So why own one? Why go against the grain of what your channel is about? That is, I'm sure, the question that some people may have. Let me kind of explain. Have you ever been up against a wall and people are, commenting, and people are pushing, and there's peer pressure mounting? Well, that's not exactly what's happened here. Basically what happened was one morning I get up and I look at my phone, and there's a text message from my buddy Joel. You guys know my buddy Joel. He's the one that has the dealership that has all the mowers, right? No, I kid. He does not have a dealership, but he definitely has a lot of mowers that are nice for me to be able to feature on my channel here. He sends me this link to offer up on a Toro Greens Master. And I've seen some posted in the past. Generally, they're not common in my area, but I look at it. And, most cases, I'll just look at it and move on from it. It's not really a mower that I was planning on entertaining. However, I look at this ad. It's about an hour and a half from where I live, so not too bad, but I would have to definitely make the commitment to go out there and look at this mower. And so I see it. And the thing that catches my eye was the price tag. I know my channel is not built on professional greens grade mowers. The price sure was on this particular ad. And money talks. So the ad was for $350. Now, in most cases, when I looked at a Toro Greens Master in the past, just by browsing, they're always $1,500, $2,000, $2,500, heck, even as much as $5,000 in some cases that I've seen, in my area, all based on condition. So I look at this one, it's a little bit rough, but at the same time, I don't feel like in most cases, you're going to find one that looks brand new. And if you do, the price is going to be, to where it's not necessarily affordable and not applicable to most residential people. So I go down there and I look at this mower, and it looks good. There's some problems with it, I could tell, but it starts up, it cuts right away. The reel looks in good shape, as far as I could tell, meaning, yeah, it probably needs to be sharpened, but there's no major issue with it. And I'll show you guys the mower here in a moment. But ultimately, it was the price, that ultimately drove me to getting the Greensmaster just so I can try it. I am a fan of all reel mowers. That's the one thing I'll make clear is that all reel mowers, I'm a huge enthusiast of. However, the residential ones are kind of my niche and where I kind of like to be when it comes to the equipment I use on my lawn. So the Greensmaster is really just a bonus. I'm going to give it a try. We'll see how it works, and I'll probably use it again in the future. But you'll even see, and I'll show you guys here, it's not even necessarily set properly, at least right now, for a residential application. So with that, let's go ahead and look at the Greensmaster. All right, so here she is. the Toro Greens Master 1000. And as always, we are going to get in an orbital spin here around the mower. So one of the things I will talk about, just really quickly, I have done a lot to it. This is not the way it looked. I didn't just, take this out of the back of my wife's van to be able to show you guys. It definitely required some work cosmetically and mechanically just to get it to this point. Now mechanically, and let me kind of just talk about a couple things that I did do so far, but I was very ecstatic to see that this is equipped with a Kawasaki FE120 motor. Now, for those of you that have Greensmasters or know about them, there's a newer Subaru motor that comes equipped on some of the Greensmasters, and those are a little more problematic. So I was very happy to see that this one had the Kawasaki motor as opposed to the Subaru motor, even though the Subaru motor would indicate that it's a newer reel mower. So from a motor standpoint, it definitely needed some work. Originally when I got the motor, yes, it did start, which was nice to see. However, it had a lot of idling problems, surging problems, so I knew that it was going to require some rebuilding to a certain extent to get the mower working the way it should. So went through the motor, replaced the spark plug, replaced the gas, replaced the oil, replaced the carburetor. I did use an aftermarket carburetor, replaced the air filter, so anything that I could basically touch from a maintenance standpoint, I went ahead and did. There's a little, screening of the fuel, went through and cleaned that guy out, greased all of the Zerk fitting, and there are a lot of Zerk fittings, as any Greensmaster owner will tell you. I don't know, I think I lost count, but there were over 10, about 8 to 10, if memory serves me right, when it comes to the grease fittings on this particular mower. Now, so that pretty much covers the motor. Now, from a belt standpoint, I looked at the belts. They all looked like they were in good condition. So I wasn't too concerned about needing to replace any of the belts. Maybe one of the drive belts, that comes off the engine pulley probably could be replaced, not because it's necessarily damaged in any way. It looks like it's a little more stretched than the belt that sits right next to it. So that's the only reason why I say that. So that's probably something I will attack, as we're in the off season here. But I bring up the fact that this is not really set for residential application. And the main purpose of why I even make that comment was just simply because of the reel. Now, the reel itself is a 14 blade reel. Now, that's not ideal for a residential application. A 14 blade reel really is only designed for being able to mow greens. Now, will it still cut your lawn? Yes, it'll absolutely still cut the lawn. However, you may run into issues where you have some grass strands that are missed, with the clip rate being as quickly as it is, considering there's so many blades on that reel, you can leave some stragglers behind. So we'll see how it does. Now, I know eventually in the future, I'm going to have to go ahead and replace that reel with either an 8, probably an 8, but maybe an 11 blade, just depending on what I feel like going with, at that time. But that's a bridge we'll cross when we get to it. The other thing I did, this did not have the transport wheels on it, which I was a little bit disappointed about. It did come with the grass catcher, at least I was happy to see, because I know those are not necessarily easy to come by. I wasn't necessarily planning on using this on my front lawn. This was mainly going to be for my backyard. So I went ahead and just removed the transport axles, so there's an easy way to just kind of take them off the mower. It looks much better now. I know people complain about mowing with them on. This gives you a little bit more clearance when it comes to that. So with that, what I'd like to do today is just get in a mow. This is going to be my first mow using the Greensmaster 1000 officially. The height of cut, I set slightly lower than 3/4 inch, somewhere between 5/8 and 3/4. Now, I do not have an AccuGauge, so I can't tell you exactly what the height of cut is. Just using a tape measure and a straight bar, I kind of went old school on it. That's kind of where I set it to ensure that it's set left to right and that we're cutting evenly. And again, it's somewhere between 3/4 and 5/8. And all right, and the other thing I did do with the reel, as you can see some green marks here. That's just pretty much from my first mow. But I did do a backlap on it, and it was fairly straightforward. And it really helped turn the reel around. I'll show you guys a picture before and after on what the reel looked like before backlap and after backlap, just so you guys can see that comparison. And we'll see how well it actually performs. I don't know what it's going to look like. I have not mowed with it yet. You guys are going to see it as I'm seeing it. And with that, let's get on to the mow. Whew. I gotta tell you, that Greensmaster really moves fast. Was not expecting that. You know, I always told my wife that, you know, I mowed the lawn to get some exercise in. It wasn't until today that was a truthful statement. Oh my goodness. But most importantly, let's see what it looks like. Definitely loving those stripes, which I definitely had no doubt this mower was going to stripe well. Now, let me turn it around just so I give you guys a little bit better look. All right, so there we go. Stripe action looking great. You know, I am definitely bummed out right now. And the reason why I'm bummed out is because we're not in the growing season anymore. I want to see what these stripes look like with the really green lawn. And now I got to wait a few months to be able to find out. But that's okay. One of the things I will be doing is I'm going to do a double cut. I'm going to mow this way now and really kind of even out this stripe action. You know, I still have the outlet stripes here, and I want to clean them up and get some nice stripe action to match this stripe action. And I'll show you guys what that looks like here after the second mow. But as you can see here, quite a bit in the grass catcher, so it is coming off, which is definitely great. I don't even think I'm going to empty it, just because I don't mind a little bit more of a height of cut lowering, so to speak, and that front basket will help weigh down the front just slightly there more, and I think I'll get a little more grass coming off as I do the second double cut. And with that, let's keep mowing. All right, so double cut's done. So what are my impressions? Well, you take a look and you tell me. Double stripe, cross action. Stripes are really lighting up in the one direction I just went right now, as you guys can see here. Let me turn the camera around. All right, so here she is. Basket pretty loaded. Did not empty that one time, but that's how much grass came off, but let's see how she did. Oh yeah, this stripe action, definitely on point. You know, I will say because of how fast the mower goes, it actually made it a little bit easier to stripe. You know, sometimes I feel like with some of the other machines, you know, being that you're going a little slower, you have more opportunity to kind of swivel. Now, my lines aren't perfectly straight, but for the fact that this is the first time using this mower on my lawn and not having to go back over passes to correct the lines, I would say it looks very, very good, if not great. You know, the stripes that are going in this direction, which is the more recent cut that I just did, are just on fire. And I don't know if it must be just because of the way the sun is right now, even though these stripes definitely look great as well. You know, they come together to really form a really nice diamond pattern where no matter where you walk on the lawn here, you know, you're seeing great stripes. So definitely very, very, very happy. Even in areas like this where it's a little rougher, you know, to be able to see that stripe action even in those areas definitely makes a huge difference. I think this is just an example though, mower aside, where, you know, if you're not happy with the way your lawn looks, give it a mow. You know, even as it's going into dormancy, probably give it a little bit of a haircut. I think you'll be much happier with it all being leveled out and definitely looking a lot better. So with that, let me go ahead and just kind of share some final thoughts on my impression of the Greensmaster 1000. First, so Dwayne, what are your first impressions of the Toro? Well, look at that. Do I even need to say anything? It just looks phenomenal. This is what I will say though. If I spent $2,000 on that mower, it better look like that. The fact that I only spent $350 on that mower and it looks like that, who can ask for more? When you think about it, yeah, I spent a little more than $350. You know, you add in the parts, maybe another 70 bucks. The fact that I did not even take that mower to a grinder, into a shop, and that's part of the problem with these real mowers. So if you are going to purchase one, please make sure you do have someone in your area that can service this mower. Because my buddy Joel had one of these mowers before, and that was the problem. He had to take it out of town to get it serviced. Now, we both live in the same town. You may be thinking, well, Dwayne, what are you going to do? I actually found somebody else, or he found somebody else. If I had to, I'd take it in. But I don't need to. I've done all the work myself. I think I could probably, if I had to, disassemble this whole mower and put it back together if I really needed to. So it'd just be a matter of getting the right parts. It's probably my only concern. But as far as the sharpening, yeah, I can't actually sharpen the mower, you know, but there's other places that I could probably call around. You know, I have another buddy that goes to a guy that always does all of his grind work. You know, he said, yeah, he'd grind it. But I figured, you know what? No, let me not take it in just yet. Let me see if I could backlap this thing back to life, because I'm a big believer in backlapping, and I think you can maintain a really nice edge on your blade and not do anything damaging to your reel to where you maybe not ever have to take it in for a sharpening and you can simply do it at home, which is what I'm all about. And in this particular case, it took me 2 backlaps. The first time I did it, thought, still could be a little sharper, looked great, but felt like it could be a little sharper. So I ran a second one. And in both cases, I ran 80 and then I ran 120. And on the second one, I felt like in order to get to cut a thin piece of paper, as you're probably supposed to do with these mowers, the tightness on the reel to bed knife clearance was just a little bit tighter than I wanted. I like it to have very minimal contact, as you guys have seen on any of my other mowers. So even if it's not necessarily the factory, I would rather have it a little loose than too tight. So with that being said, now it can probably cut like a magazine piece of paper or maybe a double sheet of paper, you know, but a really thin piece of single ply paper, no, it ain't cutting it. You know, it'll pretty much fold over. So, but that's okay, because grass that you deal with in Bermuda is not that thin. And as you guys can see, it cut great. There's nothing wrong with the sharpness on that blade, and I will now be able to maintain that. Now, I may still eventually go get a grind on it, or I may buy that new reel, which won't necessarily require for me to have to get a new grind on it, right? I could probably just maintain it from that point for the rest of its life. But, you know, with the fact that it's a 14 blade reel, and for me to get that kind of cut, like, I don't know if I want to invest that kind of money in it right now. You know, if it was my only reel mower and I had no choice, yeah, go buy the 8 blade, because otherwise you're cutting every single day in order to maintain a good quality of cut. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. It was a lot of fun putting it together. I did not mean to throw you guys a curveball the way I did, but at the same time, I am so happy with being able to present to you guys this Greensmaster and show it off on my channel here, because it definitely is a phenomenal machine. Absolutely would recommend it to you guys. If you did want to pick one up, you know, go find one that's a great deal that you can kind of put back together yourself, and you'll get a phenomenal cut. And with that, be excellent and party on.